Good evening, everyone. Before I begin, will be is right there on the podium, and it'll give you the same amount of time. So with that in mind, I think I've covered everything I need to, and we will then call the meeting to order. And please rise for the invocation by Honorable T.J. Smith.
Let us bow. Our eternal Heavenly Father, thou who dost look upon time from the beginning and until the end as part of thy eternity, we thank thee for the many years of our lives. We're grateful to thee for all of the blessings that thou hast bestowed upon us during these years. We pray, O God, that this meeting and all of the proceedings thereof will be pleasing in your eyesight. And in the end, dear God, when we're finished, we'll be so very careful to give you all the praise, honor, and glory. In Jesus' name we ask it all. Amen.
Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance led by the Honorable Dennis Sharp.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One second.
Thank you. As we begin, is Bruce Johnson in the room? Bruce, we've got your card. I'm going to ask you to meet with Michelle over on the side to make sure that you can speak on that. If it's not on our agenda, you can't speak on it. Okay. Thank you. With that in mind, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mr. Dean?
Here.
Mr. Sharp?
Here.
Mr. Thompson? Mr. Lorino?
Present.
Mr. Toledano?
Present.
Ms. Blanchard? Mr. Stefanczyk?
Ms. Blanchard is here. I'm present as well.
Mr. Tanner?
Here.
Mr. Groby? Mr. Canulet? Mr. Belisario?
Here.
Ms. O'Brien? Here. Mr. Bender?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We will now begin with the presentations.
Mr. Chairman, over here.
Mr. Smith?
If I may ask that under the presentations, if I could make a motion to move up from the off the floor agenda, item number 1 as a presentation as well. We have a visitor with us from North Carolina and they're here for a specific assignment for the parish, and we want to make sure that they get back to that business. And if you would allow us to offer that motion at this time to move that up to the front of the agenda.
I will allow it to be put at the end of the presentations.
Yes.
Okay. Seconded by Chris Canulet. Any discussion on this motion? Remember, it takes a unanimous vote. Please vote on the motion.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. It'll be placed as item 4 in presentations. Presentation of the proclamation of St. Tammany Parish Government Employee of the Month. President Brister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dwight, coming up here beside me. Thank you. I'm doing the first one, second one first, if that's okay. I think I'm going to do the Employee of the Month first, if that's okay with you. So I wanted to make sure we gave Dwight plenty of time. As we continue with our Employee of the Month presentation, I am extremely honored to be able to honor Dwight Smith tonight. And whereas Dwight Smith has been a long-time devoted St. Tammany Parish employee since February 1984, first as office manager for the Community Action Agency, then as grant manager, and ultimately moving to the Department of Health and Human Services as Housing Repair and Weatherization Program Manager. And whereas after 33 years of distinguished service, Dwight will be retiring on April 14th, 2017. He will leave a great void in his department, as well as in St. Tammany Parish. And whereas, with all the clients he meets, Dwight consistently goes the extra mile for our parish residents when they are in need. He patiently listens to the needs and troubles of his clients, then contacts other agencies and even personal contacts he may have, just to help relieve some of the burdens our low-income, elderly, and disabled clients may have. And whereas Dwight goes over and above by making visits to work sites after work hours and on weekends, just to make sure the work was done right and meets the highest quality standards. Volunteering his own personal time is not outside of Dwight's scope of services. And whereas to Dwight, being the Housing Repair and Weatherization Program Manager is not just about his job. It's about making a difference in people's lives. And whereas Dwight Smith is an overall outstanding and exemplary employee and will surely be missed, we are proud and fortunate to have had him on our team and thank him for his lifelong service to St. Tammany Parish government. Therefore, I, Patricia Brister, as President of St. Tammany Parish, do hereby recognize the hard work and accomplishments of Dwight Smith as Employee of the Month for April 2017. And I encourage all employees of St. Tammany Parish to thank him for his contributions and commitment to St. Tammany Parish. Dwight, we'll never be able to replace you for all you've done. Thank you, and happy retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Smith.
As a point of personal privilege, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. For many people who don't know, within parish government, Dwight is my brother. And I won't have this opportunity again probably in life to be able to acknowledge and be a part of such a grand occasion. When I came into parish government, Dwight was already working with the Community Action Agency, and we watched him over the years do a fantastic job there. But I am the oldest of 5 boys, and Dwight's number 4, so I changed his diapers. But anyway, I just want to also acknowledge the great contribution that you've made to the parish of St. Tammany and the work that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight, very much.
If I may briefly, you know, this has been a labor of love, and I don't take it lightly. I could not have done what I've done without the help of those who surrounded me, and it has always been, again, a joint effort in everything that I've done. And again, it has been a pleasure and an honor to serve the residents of St. Tammany Parish. And even though I'm retiring, I'm not going away, so you guys will see me, especially him. But I thank you for the recognition, and I wish you all well. Thank you.
Now, Ms. Brister, you have a presentation to
I do.
Fairhaven Ministry.
I do. As you all know, all employees decided if they could wear jeans on Fridays, they would donate $1 every week to a charity, and they would choose the charity that would receive the funds. So it's my honor today to ask Mr. Huffman. Mr. Huffman? Yeah, there you go. Come on up with me. Thank you. So I'm honored to present a contribution from parish government employees to Mr. John Huffman of Fairhaven Ministries. Parish government employees donate $1 every Jean Day, Friday, and they vote to select the recipient of these donations. Fairhaven Ministries is a faith-based organization whose original mission was to offer a safe, loving home to children. Their mission has expanded to include providing Christmas boxes to elderly and orphans. Please join me in thanking Mr. Huffman for his continued contribution to St. Tammany Parish as we offer him this check in the amount of $5,002. Thank you. Thank you. Say anything? Oh, wait, I think I better give him the check. Sorry, that one won't go in the bank.
I just want to thank y'all for I want to thank St. Tammany Parish for its support through the years. Fairhaven's been in operation 51 years this past January. My father-in-law when he started the ministry, he prayed that God would have the ministry in Alexandria, East Texas. God put it in St. Tammany Parish. And I tell you what, through the years, the judicial system and everyone, without their support, we couldn't be where we are today. But we've had a part in the lives between 300 and 350 children through the years. And God took $1.47, and now we work all over the world. Thank y'all for your support. God bless you.
Our next presentation is by John Linder. John, I believe, is head of the Indigent Defenders.
Well, actually, my name is John Linder. I'm the Chief Public Defender for the 22nd Judicial District. I'm here today to talk about briefly the specialty courts in St. Tammany Parish and Washington Parish. When I took over, I was appointed to my position 5 years ago, and I'm sure you remember all the stories about St. Slamony and everybody going to jail. We have been very fortunate in that we have a judiciary who took the lead with specialty courts. Judge Garcia, some time ago, started the first drug court. The judges also realized that criminal justice reform would not be possible unless the public defender was at the table and had an equal voice. So they brought us in. Today, we have 2 drug courts, a sobriety court that deals with DWI offenders. Judge Garcia has now started a behavioral health court. We also have a reentry court that I'm involved in, and as of last week, we started the Veterans Court under Judge Childress. In fact, I would invite all of you on Monday at 10 o'clock at the Justice Center. We'll have a press conference announcing the Veterans Court. What these courts mean is that we now have an alternative to incarceration. For example, with the reentry court that I'm involved in, we have young men and women now who, by the age of 24, 25, may have 3, 4, 5 felony convictions on their record and could be looking at 20 years to a life sentence. Now, these specialty courts, and it's important to remember, these specialty courts are for nonviolent crimes. The vast majority of them are drug-related. In the reentry courts, the way it works is that these young men and women go to Angola, go to the women's prison that's now located in Baton Rouge for 2 years, and they learn a trade. Angola for years has had some of the best trade schools in the state. Unfortunately, the people that went through them weren't getting out. So now we have these young men who go there. They come out with certifications in welding, auto mechanics, culinary, horticulture, and there's probably about 5 more. For the last, I want to say the first person got out of Angola 4 years ago. Since that time, we now have, and I may be off on this, but I want to say 37 men who have completed the program in Angola and are now being supervised by Judge Knight. Of those 37 men who have completed the program, we have had exactly 2 who were removed of the program because of recidivism or violations. That's unbelievable. The reason that these specialty courts are so important and why they need to be funded is if you look at the general population of offenders, the average recidivism rate or repeat offender rate after 5 years is approximately 47%. That means 47% of the people who have been out of prison for 5 years will reoffend. Excuse me. The graduates of the specialty courts, and the only thing we have really that we can look at are the drug courts because they've been around for a while. Graduates of the drug court, their recidivism rate after 5 years is about 15%. After 3 years, it's 2%. We have people that come out of these specialty courts, rather than go to jail, rather than taxpayers paying to warehouse these people, we are giving them the opportunity to have a job, pay taxes, be a member of society, and contribute. Why am I here talking about this? Because I have it's a selfish motive, I will tell you right now. In order for these specialty courts to work, the public defender's office has to staff them. There has to be a public defender in that courtroom working with these people. I am doing it now for reentry court because of my interest in it. However, the sales tax that's coming up for the Justice Center and the jail tax, you and the city parish council has agreed that the specialty courts will get 10% of that. That would be an unbelievable boost to the program, what we can do. Understand that these people that come out of reentry court, especially in reentry court, they have no transportation, they have no housing, and it's hard to get a job when you can't get to work. Unfortunately, our grant money that we get restricts how we can use it. Having this influx of money that we can get in, then we could help these people with transportation, we could help them with housing. There are numerous things that we can do. We can help them with treatment, quite frankly. Also, we give the opportunity, and I'm not going to start, but as you know, I could stay here for an hour and tell you how underfunded I am and how much money I need in my office, but I won't. I'll save that for another day. But this would allow us to get a piece of the pie. This would allow me to maybe hire social workers. And you say, why would a public defender's office require a social worker? Because probably 80 to 85% of my clients, my office clients, have some sort of mental health issue. We are willing to work with the judiciary and the district attorney's office to provide alternatives, and we appreciate the help that you're giving us by giving us the opportunity to share in the proceeds of this tax, and hopefully it will pass at the end of the year. And I thank you for your time, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Linder. I know he said he hopes it'll pass the end of this year. I'm going to tell you that the election is April the 29th.
Early voting is the 15th.
And that's, you know, and I hope that everybody goes out and votes. Let's go ahead with the presentation, with the last presentation, which is, we moved it up from item 1 off the floor. I believe Judy Randall is here, and Mr. Smith, you want to introduce her?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Several years ago, I was given the pleasurable opportunity of being appointed to the St. Tammany Parish Tourist and Convention Commission by my colleague to my right here when he was the chairman. And it has been one of the most educational and gratifying experiences that I've ever had during my work profession, and I've learned so much about tourism and convention business that time just won't permit me to share all of you tonight. But we have coming before us a young lady who represents the Randall Travel Marketing Consulting Incorporated out of Charlotte, North Carolina, that we at the Tourist Commission have relied on very heavily in making decisions as to how we complete the operations of the Tourist Commission. And that information and the research that she provides to that commission is just invaluable, and so I'm going to ask her if she'd come at this time, Judy Randall, and greet the council. And this is going to be to my colleagues the first and the beginning of a series of presentations that the Tourist Commission will be making to you, giving you an understanding, a more fully understanding of what we do at the Tourist Commission and how it impacts St. Tammany Parish and its residents and taxpayers in so many ways. Judy Randall.
Thank you, TJ. Appreciate that. Good evening. I'm here visiting in St. Tammany with my husband, Dr. Bill Randall, and we do tourism research and strategic planning and basically evaluating organizations like your Tourism Commission here. We've been doing this for about 25 years. We've worked with over 250 communities all over the United States, everything from Las Vegas and Disney to very small communities. So one of the things that we bring to the table is a whole lot of been there, done that, looking at how you are doing and comparing that to other communities similar to you. Why are you interested in tourism, though? Tourism is one of your largest industries. It's one of your 10 largest. So it's important to you. It's a $220 million industry. But the reason why it's important to you is not just the revenues that are generated, it's the tax relief. Because people come here and spend money, this is new money that doesn't live here. And that's a critically important term to remember. Bringing in new money that doesn't live here that generates taxes. What happens is that money becomes tax relief for the people that live in St. Tammany Parish. Right now, each household in St. Tammany Parish does not have to pay about $217 in taxes because these people who live outside come here and spend money that is used for your goods and services. So it's an important industry. It's about 1,600 jobs. And what we're doing is looking, this is a project, and TJ, the board for the Tourism Commission has had us come in. This is now, I think, the third study that we've done, and it's a very comprehensive study. I'm not here to go over the whole thing. You are being given our first piece in it, which is a performance review. And in this performance review, we drill down and we're looking at the money, we're looking at how the organization is structured, how the money works, and basically how your performance is doing as a tourism industry. I'll say a couple of quick things about it as you have that handout in front of you. If you look on the first page, it talks about your competitive set, if you would. The communities that are similar to you, like Monroe, St. Tammany, Houma, and Tangipahoa, and they outgun you right now. They spend their tourism funding is higher than yours by a considerable amount. In spite of that, you've had incredibly good performance. So I just want you to know that and know that right now things are looking good, but the funding is low. It's tighter than it should be compared to your competitive set of communities directly here in Louisiana. Again, this study is ongoing. We will not have it finished until sometime in October. At that point, we'll be back with a more comprehensive report for you that shows why people come here, what they like about it. I can tell you that tourism is growing. And this week we're here talking to visitors from all over. I've talked to people from the UK, from Canada. I've talked to people that were residents here and came back because they just love it. You've got a wonderful industry, and you've got wonderful opportunity to see this thing grow. And I hope that we'll be able to help you to do the right thing by it and take it where it can go. With that, I thank you. Thank you for your time, and look forward to coming back and seeing you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now go to the consent calendar. Any items not pulled from the consent calendar are automatically approved in whole by one vote. Items pulled from the consent calendar are discussed and voted upon individually. We have the following items to pull so far, and ordinances for introduction. Item number 5, ordinance calendar number 5792. Item number 9, ordinance calendar 5796. Under resolutions, we have item 1, 4788, and item 8, 4795, and item 11, 4798. Mr. Dean, you have anything? No, sir. Mr. Sharp? No, sir. Red's not here. Mr. Lorino? No, sir. Mr. Toledano? No, thank you. Ms. Blanchard?
No, sir.
Mr. Tanner?
No, sir.
Mr. Groby?
No, sir.
Mr. Canulet?
No, sir.
Mr. Belisario?
No, sir.
Ms. O'Brien?
No, sir.
Mr. Bender?
No, sir.
Ms. Smith? The staff have anything to pull? Does anyone from the audience have anything else to pull from the consent calendar for discussion? Seeing none, we're going to put a motion on the floor to adopt all the items on our consent agenda except the ones that I read off to be pulled. So I need a motion to do that. Motion by Mr. Canulet, seconded by Ms. O'Brien. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, please vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, let's go to ordinances for introduction. Ordinance number 5792. We have a speaker card on this, and it is Charles Shepard, Jr. Yes. And Charles, you'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name's Charles Shepard. I've been living at this place since 1963. It's just me and my wife now, so it's really, the reason I'm asking for it to be rezoned is it's really too large for us to do, to properly maintain it. Both residents since 1979 has had the new sewage treatment plants installed. I only have one neighbor on the road.
Mr. Shepard, I'm going to stop you a minute. This is on ordinance for introduction. It's not going to be voted upon tonight in final form. And unless there is an appeal, it will go to the final form next month, or if there is an appeal, you'll be notified that there is appeal and you'll have time to come and present your case then.
Okay.
This is really the wrong place to present the case is what I'm telling you.
Okay.
And I apologize for you not knowing that, but this is just introducing the ordinance.
Okay.
It has to lay over a month.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Next one, item number 9. Oh, yes, you're right, I do. Need a motion to introduce by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Belisario. That's it. Okay, item number 9, ordinance count number 5796. Mr. Lorino.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Chairman, this ordinance is for our fire district 2, and they want to join the other districts. Chief Hess is here. He made a presentation to the agenda review, and it was passed at the agenda review. So I'd like to make a motion to introduce at this time, please.
Second. Mr. Lorino.
Yes, sir.
The motion would be to
Introduce.
Would be to adopt. This is an emergency ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yep, you suspend the rules and adopt.
Suspend the rules and adopt.
Seconded by Mr. Toledano. Okay. Any further discussion on this motion? Please vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay. Under resolutions, item number 1, 4788, Mr. Dean. I think you want to table this until after ordinance calendar number 5758 is adopted.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Motion by Mr. Dean to move this behind the ordinance calendar number 5758. Who seconded it? Seconded by Ms. Blanchard. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Did we clear? We haven't cleared. Clear.
Mr. Belisario? Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Thank you.
You just passed it. Oh, wait, no, that's Senator. Back page. You're missing one.
Yeah, you're right. I'll get it. Okay, second one is item number 8, resolution number 4795.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to postpone until next month.
Motion by Mr. Belisario to postpone resolution 4795 to next month.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Smith.
And
Any discussion on the postponement?
I'm going to recuse myself from this.
Okay. Any, if you're recusing yourself, you need to state why.
I sit on this board.
Okay.
I sit on the leadership board.
Okay. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent, 1 recusal.
Item number 11, resolution 4798, resolution to concur, not to concur with Slidell annexation rezoning of 3 acres, Parish A3 to Slidell A6. Mr. Bender, yes, that this be pulled.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion to postpone until our May meeting.
Motion by Mr. Bender to postpone.
Second.
Yes, and we're going to use this time. I've already met with our legal counsel. I'd like to meet with them more, and I might also add that the Slidell City Council also has postponed theirs until May.
Okay.
So,
who seconded the motion? TJ Smith. Okay, thank you. Motion by Mr. Bender, seconded by Mr. Smith to postpone until the May meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Somebody didn't vote. Mr. Groby? Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Thank you. We're now going to the appeals, and I'm going to reiterate something. You know, after the January meeting where someone was removed from this room, I put together a communications work group, and we've been meeting the last 2 to 3 months, and we have some recommendations that are going to come before the council. Tonight, I'm going to start exercising the ones that I can exercise without having council total approval. So with that in mind, I think there's going to be 3 appeals tonight. One of them will be postponed. So we'll be starting with the second one, and we're going to allow each side 10 minutes per side to present their stuff and 2 minutes per side for rebuttal. And that's it tonight. So I'm going to be setting the clock at 10 minutes and 2 minutes. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask Mr. Snyder, appealing the Zoning Commission's approval on March 7th for plan review of the of the used driveways, parking lots, and outdoor lighting for the running track, football field, and tennis courts on 13.15 acres located on the southeast corner of Highway 21 and Christwood Boulevard, Ward 1, District 1.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, before we move to Mr. Snyder, do you need a formal motion to postpone the first appeal?
Yes, we do.
I so move.
Motion by Mr. Toledano, seconded by Mr. Canulette. I'm sorry, Mr. Snyder, but any discussion on the motion to postpone? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. Mr. Snyder, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom Snyder on behalf of Natchez Trace Property Owners Association. And just to be clear for the record, I'm counsel for Natchez Trace. I know it appears I'm appealing on my behalf, but just to be clear, I'm their attorney of record. There are a number of issues contained in the permit application that is the subject of this appeal. I've been asked to address the track lighting system. Last month, the Zoning Commission found that an after-the-fact showing of compliance with parish lighting ordinances, which at a minimum is always necessary, was sufficient to approve a use permit in favor of Christ Episcopal School for track lighting at its Highway 21 campus. These lights, this photograph was also shown at the Zoning Commission hearing. These lights that were already at that time in use for quite some time. In 2015, the school was told that it would need, and please indulge me, this is a quote from planning, to, quote, provide an exterior lighting plan so all exterior lighting shall be shaded or inwardly directed in such a manner so that no direct lighting or glare is cast beyond the property line. So that was in 2015, April 2015. And to be clear, and the Zoning Commission did, I think, acknowledge that such systems exist, but they were not provided in this case. Nevertheless, and without coming back to the Commission, the school installed its current lighting system in 2016. This prompted planning to state on January 13th, 2017, quote, considering that the lighting has already been installed, provide an as-built plan to confirm that the field lighting meets the parish requirements and the attached photometric. The photometric deals with the 1 candle-foot intensity requirement, which is not at issue here. The issue has always been the glare, at least as far as Natchez Trace Property Owners Association is concerned. It's the glare issue. And it goes directly to the initial request in 2015 that a plan be provided that shows no direct lighting or glare beyond the property line. So now, because the lights have been installed, and even though we have extreme glare beyond the property line, the school is now being told that it only must show that it complies with parish requirements. But in January 2017, planning also stated as a requirement and included the previous approved conditions for the running track, football field, and tennis court. So I don't know why that wouldn't capture and include a plan that doesn't allow glare beyond the property line. But in any event, to fall back on merely complying with code requirements circumvents the Commission's own requirement that lighting be shaded or inwardly directed so as not to allow direct lighting or glare beyond the property line. Second, and after-the-fact approval, based on code compliance alone, has the effect of depriving the community, the public, of an opportunity to speak on the proposal. The public was denied an opportunity to have a say on any plan, not the current one, and especially one in which the Zoning Commission required a plan that would show that direct light or glare would not be cast beyond the property line. There was discussion at the Zoning Commission hearing last month, a good deal of it, in fact, regarding the degree or the severity of the glare beyond the property line. But I submit to you, once we are engaged in a discussion about how bad the glare is, we're overlooking the fact that the original intent was to have no glare beyond the property line. As to the issue of code compliance, Natchez Trace is not convinced that the current lighting system does comply. And specifically, I'm going to use the actual code, 7.0308, dealing with recreational field lighting, Section B regarding shielding, states that all fixtures, and this is in order to be exempt from the total lumen output, all fixtures used for event lighting shall be fully shielded or be designed or provide sharp cutoff capability so as to minimize uplighting, spill light, and glare. We've seen nothing to demonstrate that these are fully shielded fixtures. There was a photograph of the actual lights with the zoning package, and it clearly demonstrates they're not fully shielded. There's been attempts to adjust the lighting in order to minimize the glare, but I believe the comments have been that it's reached the point that it would start impacting the lighting on the field. So we are not convinced, the association is not convinced that it meets the recreational facilities lighting requirement. And finally, we've heard recently that the cost of an LED system, which has been proposed, at least by the association members, from what I understand, not that it would be the only type of system that might be a solution here, might cost upwards of $120,000. I don't know where that came from, but Natchez Trace submits that the collective depreciation in the property values of the homes along the border with the school, the depreciation in those property values is going to be at least that much if that is going to be taken into consideration. Therefore, Natchez Trace asks that the Zoning Commission approval be reversed, or that the council at least modify the approval to require the production of a plan that would correct the glare issue and bring it more into conformity with the Zoning Commission, with the Planning Commission's original 2015 recommendations. And with that, I'll turn it over to, I believe, Gary Giordano is the president of Natchez Trace, and he would like an opportunity to address the. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Chairman, Councilman, Parish President. My name is Gary Giordano. I live at 324 Memphis Trace. I'm the president of Natchez Trace Property Owners Association. And my fiduciary duty as the president is to uphold the value and the quality of life of our residents. The lighting system installed by Christ Episcopal School depreciates value and severely impacts quality of life of residents living adjacent to the school. Lights are glaring, as the photograph shows, and the residents are pretty upset about this. So I've looked at the regulations, the outdoor lighting regulation, and my opinion is that they are not in compliance. I've asked Mr. Hand to review those regulations. His comment was that it meets parish regulations, but there was no specific mention that it met the specific applicable sections of the outdoor lighting regulations, nor was there a comment that it would not violate the nuisance ordinance of the parish. So I would submit to you as a council that you at least determine explicitly if those lights actually meet the outdoor lighting regulations and do not constitute a nuisance under your own nuisance ordinance. Thank you.
Chairman, Council, thank you very much. I'm Vincent Wynn of Wingo and Labella. I've actually been hired by Pete Burkhalter, Bob Early, and Judge Hanson, who is actually a homeowner. My clients also own several lots that are basically the ones that face the lighting. You know, in talking to a few of you prior to this meeting, you know, I really think we need a little bit more time to really discuss some of these issues. As you can see, just based on what the arguments are, there may be some other options. I mean, we could talk about moving these posts. We could talk about maybe some other types of lighting. I hate to see us rush to a judgment tonight and just make a decision, because you know what that's going to end up in. We're going to end up in litigation, right? That's what's coming. And then the parish is going to get brought in, the school's going to get brought in. So I think the school has been fairly amenable as it relates to trying to somewhat help with this situation, but they've dug their heels in on this. And look, this is one of these situations where they did it without permission, and now they're seeking approval. Well, I'm a lawyer. That's a great stance. I'll just go tell my clients to do this stuff, come back before you at a later time, and hope you get it approved. It sets a terrible precedent today for us to approve something, meaning the council, when in fact it should never have been done in the first place. Because these people sitting out here have issues. If you sit in Judge Hanson's house, he will tell you that he can turn his lights off and read when these lights are on. You cannot say that that is not a problem. It's a nuisance. There's no question. It's going to be a problem. Give us an opportunity to discuss this, to try and work to a better resolution. And if we can't, we can't. We come back. But this has been very fast-tracked. I'd ask, number one, to try and table this to give us a little bit more time to work with the school. If not, I'd ask that it be denied so that they're going to come back again and ask for something else. So that's where I am. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I think we're out of time.
You had about 7 seconds left.
I can never say something in 7 seconds. Thank you.
Neither can a lot of people up here. Okay. Who is the other side? Where's the... Oh, there it is. This Chip. Are you Chip?
Yes, good evening.
Okay.
Excuse me, let me just...
Is that Chip Lyons?
Lyons, yes, thank you.
Lyons, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do you have other people that's going to speak as well?
No, we have the chair of this board of the school, the head of the school, and parents are here. If they want to contribute, they can certainly do so. I'll make the presentation on behalf of the school.
You only have 10 minutes is what I'm going to tell you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Including them.
Sure. Let me just, if you don't mind, go ahead and get my PowerPoint started here. Okay. All right. Good evening. Chip Lyons, 201 St. Charles in New Orleans, here on behalf of Christ Episcopal School. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to appear here this evening. I'd like to provide some perspective on what's gone on with the track at the school. The project started in 2015. The school went through the necessary process to get site plan approval for the track. At the time that site plan approval was obtained, the school did not have frankly, a budget in place to do the lighting, so the lighting was not included in the initial site plan approval. Subsequent to that, the school was able to raise funding to do the lighting, and so decided to proceed with that part of the project. When they did so, they applied for building permit for the light standards for the electrical work, and that was approved and issued by the parish. They, however, neglected inadvertently to come back and get their prior site plan approval amended. So that's why we're here tonight, and that's what we've been doing with the Planning Commission. The school, chronology-wise, became aware of the issue in November of 2016. They immediately stopped work on the entire project, filed an application to amend their prior site plan approval with the planning department. In terms of the public input and public process, it was addressed by the appellants. The school has been in front of the Zoning Commission 3 separate hearings, January, February, and March. Also had a neighborhood meeting, so we certainly are of the opinion that there's been ample opportunity for public input on this. As part of that process, the school has also made substantial concessions and incurred additional costs to address some of the neighbors' issues. So to give you some perspective, I'm going to go through some of these slides. I'm going to try not to go through all of them because we do have limited time, and they're a little bit hard size-wise to see. So this is an original site plan showing what the school was doing in terms of adding lighting and adding that internal drive coming around the track. What the school has done, and unfortunately it's hard to see here, but I will go ahead and scroll through to give you a list of concessions and items that the school has done. So there's an internal drive that goes around the track. The school has made that go in one direction instead of two, so as to facilitate carpool and not have cars stacking onto Highway 21. The original parking plan had cars facing Natchez Trace. The school's taken out that row of parking and put the parking elsewhere so you don't have cars facing Natchez Trace. The internal drive around the track could be 20 feet away from Natchez Trace. The school's moved it back to 50 feet. With regard to the lights themselves, the lights, as it's been noted, have been installed. The planning department has been out. They've inspected it. They've determined that it complies with parish code requirements. The school's had an independent engineer come out, provide a letter inspecting it, and that engineer's determined that it complies with parish code requirements, and the manufacturer's been out to inspect it as well. So there's been, at this point, 3 layers of review of these lights to determine that they are, in fact, compliant with parish code requirements. We've also, in terms to ameliorate any issues with the neighbors, have put in 3 times the required landscaping and an additional 400 feet of privacy fence. Going back to the issues about the lights themselves, so this is an image of the lights. The lights, again, the lighting was permitted by the parish. The planning department's inspected it, determines it's compliant. The shields are there to make sure the lights point down. And the definition of glare under the parish code is essentially something that could interfere with someone's ability to see or temporarily blind someone. The lights are not, the lights do not violate the glare requirements of the parish code. I'll show you a picture of so this is a picture of the school at night. So the lights, by definition, are visible, but that doesn't mean, the fact that the lights are visible does not mean that they're violating any parish code requirements or creating inordinate glare. And just for example, again, going back to the type of lighting fixture that we've installed pursuant to parish code requirements with the downshield, and then if you look at lights at other stadiums, they're not subject to these current parish requirements. They do not have the type of mechanisms that the school has installed in order to avoid glare and in order to avoid lighting of adjacent property. So what the school has done is far beyond what you would find at comparable fields, and we think that that's actually a testament to the fact that the code requirement that the parish has adopted works. We followed it. The lights were designed to comply with it. The permit department issued a permit because the lights were in compliance, and once the lights were installed, the planning department has come out and in fact confirmed that they are compliant with parish code requirements. At this point, I don't have any other specific comments, I don't think. But I, again, would point out that we've gone through, the school has stopped work on this project since November because of this issue. This is the 4th public hearing we've had on it in addition to a neighborhood meeting. So again, I'd like to, would hope that based on the recommendation of the planning department staff, based on the vote of the planning commission itself, that the council would uphold that decision. And I can certainly answer any questions if you have any.
So you're finished?
Yes.
Thank you. I have Mr. Snyder to come up. You got 2 minutes rebuttal.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In brief rebuttal, we've just heard mention of 3 prior hearings, and now this being the 4th. In support of the argument, there's been ample opportunity for public comment. All of the meetings have involved, up to this point, we've gathered to address why the school should be allowed to keep what would not have otherwise complied with the 2015 recommendations for installing a lighting system that would not let direct light or glare cross the property line. And it begs the question of why those types of plans were not considered, knowing that they existed then. Mention was made of the school's inspector coming out and issuing a report that the lighting system complies with code requirements, and we've conceded that it complies with the 1 candle-foot lumens requirement. It doesn't, and we have yet to see anything that addresses the glare issue. Okay, and then we just heard again getting into this issue of discussing what the definition of glare is and how offensive it might be. Well, it's clearly a subjective issue, the definition of glare, and whether it's something that could cause blindness or otherwise be a problem for an individual person is, I think, clearly subjective. And I think Judge Hanson, for example, would disagree that the glare issue here is not a violation of the definition under the Parish Code of Ordinances. And once again, I'm going to apologize. Is it acceptable to have Judge Hanson step up in the 10 seconds? 14 seconds. Can you speak in 10 seconds?
I can try to speak in 10 seconds.
Okay, thank you.
Can you get done in less than 10 seconds?
I'm going to try.
Thank you.
First of all, I guess I'm one of the victims of the situation. My house faces, the back of my house faces the school as well as other people here. We came here to live in the peace and tranquility of St. Tammany, and I can tell you the glare has been so severe that it does come through our windows. It does affect us if we're watching TV at night. My wife would be best to talk to you about it, but anyway, as a person who actually suffers through this, I think we can look at papers, we can look at reports, but you got to be there to see it, and you're invited to my house if you like. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lyons, you have 2 more minutes of rebuttal.
Sure, and I'm going to have Steve Croxton, who's the, head of the school, go ahead, head of the school board, the school's board, go ahead and respond. Hang on 1 second.
Mr. Chairman, didn't he have 3 minutes left on his original 10?
He had 3 minutes and 17 seconds.
And then his 2-minute rebuttal?
No.
You just took his 3 minutes away?
Yes.
All right. You can
And the reason is we gave him 10 minutes. We told him there would be 10 minutes and 2 minutes. You do a proposal, you do your presentation in 10 minutes, and you got 2 minutes rebuttal. So I
Chairman,
think
2 minutes
everybody has to adhere to that.
That's a new rule, but we'll go with it.
Well, no, the rule was always violated before, Mr. Dean.
But back when we had 5 minutes and somebody had 4 minutes, 1 minute left, we gave them another minute.
You did. I didn't.
I'm nicer than you are.
Thank you.
Hang on 1 second.
Is this Steve?
We're just waiting on the PowerPoint. I just have one reference back to that.
You want to see the others, lights from the other schools?
Yeah, start there.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, my name is Stephen Croxton, 673 Kiskatom Lane in Mandeville. It's a pleasure to address all of you, and we certainly appreciate everyone's time and attention to this issue this evening. The school, I'm chairman of the Board of Trustees of Christ Episcopal School. It's a school, for a little bit of frame of reference outside of the context of the legalities here, which I think the attorneys have addressed effectively. over 630 students, 400 families at Christ Episcopal School. We think we do an unbelievable job of educating children in this parish, and we've worked really, really hard. This particular project is the culmination of a project that was begun in 2012 to expand and to grow the school and to provide the facilities and the opportunities that we need for our students to be able to grow and enjoy the benefits of a nice track and field. And we believe that we have been very accommodating to our good neighbors at Natchez Trace. However, we do believe that there's one other issue that has not really been addressed at the council that's part of this approval, which is a safety factor, which is near and dear to my heart. We have, as part of this new plan, an ability to put a road around the track, which will alleviate a bunch of pressure that backs up, particularly during carpool time, onto Highway 21. And the stacking presents a serious danger. We've waited we're on our 6th month of delay to take this pressure and traffic off of Highway 21. And we believe that we have a great solution, that we've been doing everything right. We don't have a staff of attorneys at the school. We did have a foot fault for which we have apologized repeatedly, but we do believe that we're in compliance. And again, if you'll just take a look with me quickly at the other schools in the parish, you can see the type of lighting that they have. At St. Scholastica, that's their lighting. At St. Paul's, that's their lighting, all unshielded. At Covington High, all unshielded lighting. Fontainebleau, unshielded lighting. Mandeville High, unshielded lighting, and Mandeville with their lights in an adjacent neighborhood right behind it. And Christ Episcopal's lighting. This is the state-of-the-art lighting system in the parish. We believe we have done everything that we need to do to be good citizens and be supportive to not only our neighbors, but certainly to our families and to our students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. We now turn it over to the council for any comments or remarks or questions. You going to ask something?
I do. Matt? Mr. Bender.
Ms. Blanchard?
Mr. Fontenot, can you comment on, does the lighting comply with the parish code requirements, please?
Yes, it does. There are a number of issues at the heart of the technical requirements for parish code. Number one is the fixture. And as you saw in the pictures that were on the screen and probably some in your packet, the shielding goes down below the 90% or 90-degree horizontal. So it prevents light from moving straight out sideways from the bulb. That makes it in compliance. So more common than what you see on the screen today are the shoebox lightings you see at retail outlets where all the light is going down, or the Cobra head lights that Clico is now putting in to comply with our ordinance, as opposed to the old lights with the glass globe hanging from them. The aspect as far as the height, normally the maximum height requirement is 35 feet. There is a specific waiver or a specific exemption for sports lighting. It allows a higher light. These lights are at 70 feet within that amount. And the amount of lumens allowed or the candle feet allowed at the property line, there's no dispute on any part that they do comply with that. The light spillage is not going over as far as the intensity of lights into the adjacent properties. I think what's happened in this situation is because of the height of the lights, that 90-degree shielding does not have the same effect it would have in a shopping center with 35-foot lights. So I think that's what is at the heart of this, and the heart of it, and you heard it repeatedly, is what is disabilitating glare, excessive glare. The code is full of this subjective description of glare. And I think that's where we sit. But as far as the technical items that we can measure, it complies with all of the technical requirements of the ordinance.
Thank you.
Mr. Bender?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions to ask and perhaps a suggestion. I ask these questions because I have to vote on this. It's not close to my council district. I'm not familiar with the lighting on in the neighborhood around it. However, just as a point, and I think that my take is that from everything I've read and everything I've listened to tonight, is that both sides are good in this issue. I don't think there's a bad side here, okay? We have a school who naturally wants to provide athletic events. We have a neighborhood who wants quality of life. What I would like to say to both sides is, and I just look at my own council district, and we just saw many, many lights in Mandeville High and other locations. I have two major high schools in my council district, Slidell High and Salmon High, with full-size football fields, baseball fields, softball fields, etc. I have neighborhoods immediately adjacent to both. In the case of Salmon, I have soccer fields that are not theirs, but that are part of Slidell Youth Soccer on the other side of this subdivision, immediately adjacent. In my years on the Slidell City Council and the St. Tammany Parish Council, I've not received one complaint about lighting, about a lighting problem. So regardless, and I think Mr. Fontenot made a good point, and that is, what is the height compared to the type of light? I'm not a lighting expert, but what I would say is the lighting apparently is working on all these other ball fields all over the parish that I've seen on this PowerPoint. It is in my area, okay? So for my vote, I have to ask, and maybe Mr. Chip, you could come up. When these fields are put in, a design lighting firm is brought in because the lights have to be much higher for ball fields.
Correct.
Okay. They can't be the height of parking lots. Okay. But they have computer systems that literally tell them how to angle every single light on every one of these light stanchions. Has that been done?
Yes, the manufacturer of the lights actually does the lighting for, I believe it's Minute Maid Park in Houston, and after basically the person who had worked on this system had done an inspection at Minute Maid Park, came to the school, they did a light test, they adjusted the lights downward by another 5%, which somewhat reduced the effectiveness of the lighting within the track area, but again was another step taken in order to try and avoid any adverse impact. So the lights essentially are, I guess we'd have to say, over-compliant with parish code, and this was all factored into the design, as were the objective criteria in the parish code requirements. And after the lights were, and I guess I don't want to digress much, but because the lights are installed, this is actually an opportunity where you're not just approving something beforehand that we're going to put in these lights. You can actually see what's there. We've been able to see what's there. The manufacturer's been able to see what's there. Engineers been able to see what's there, and factored all this into determining that what's been installed is in fact compliant and is in our opinion, goes beyond what's required because of the more recent adjustments that were made.
Okay, and I would just say this, and I know the issue is, does it comply with parish code? And I get that, okay? Mm-hmm. But also, for me, is it in compliance? Is it generally acceptable? So for me, and I want to follow up real quickly, what you're telling me is that the manufacturer of the lighting, okay, the lights themselves that are up on those stanchions, they have come out with their lighting design group, and they have actually focused each single light as these groups do, okay? That is the way they accomplish two things. I'm not an expert, but I know about this. They want to make sure that there are no dark spots on the fields. At the same time, they want to make sure there's no overflow of lighting into neighborhoods. And my last question is, you're saying that their design side has come in and located the tilt of every single light on these stanchions.
Right. Well, and so I wasn't there when the manufacturer came out, but my understanding is they came out, they did an inspection with the lights on. Based on that inspection, they turned the lights even further down. I would assume that they looked at every light, but I was not there, so I don't want to say something that may be technically incorrect. But my understanding is they came out, they did an inspection, and as a result of that inspection, they took additional steps to reduce any adverse impact on any neighboring properties.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Lorino.
I was last, but I'll go now if you want me to, sure. First of all, I want to say something about the comment about litigation. There's two sides to this issue. We can rule one way or the other way, and we have the possibility of litigation. So that's not something that I have to consider, and I don't. The other issue is I pass it every day. My district is District 4. I pass up and down Natchez Trace every day, every night. I don't know how many meetings there were on this project, and maybe someone else could tell me that, but when it went up, when I saw the first piles of mud that were there, I realized there was going to be some type of park there. I also realized that if you're going to have a park there, you're going to have lights there. So I don't know where the residents were when they went past there, that if they didn't hear anything, they could have initiated something as they passed there every day, a few times a day. I realize that this is a very tough situation. And Sydney, the procedure still has me a little bit confused, and I'm new. Just tell me if I'm right or wrong for my own sake. The school is authorized to do what they did, but they did not come in the beginning and say we're doing this. Is that correct?
Yeah,
in short.
Essentially, the planned corridor along the Highway 21 requires that any lots fronting on there have a plan approved relative to lighting, landscaping, and signage. It has nothing to do with the use. The use is a permitted use. It's the design elements of that use. Back in 2005, I believe it was, the school came in and got permission for the concession stand and the track and some other issues. As part of that approval, you did not have the parking lot and the lighting, and I believe there may have been one other more relatively minor thing that weren't included in that. And that's where the confusion came in. They had permission to do part of what they did in developing the track. They didn't have permission to do all of it.
Okay.
Once we determined that permission hadn't been granted, as we do with anybody who is caught in a violation, and you and I have had this discussion on others.
We have. That's why I'm asking this question.
We allow them to go through the process to correct it. We don't automatically issue citations and go to a hearing or go to court. Mm-hmm. We allow people to come to correct the situation, which is what the court's going to tell us to do anyway.
Okay.
They're going to say, did you follow the administrative processes? And if we didn't, they're going to send us back. They're not going to make a judgment. So that's where we are. There were some missteps in the process because not everything that they have done had been approved as part of that original master plan.
So technically, Sydney, this will sound crazy, but technically we could say you didn't follow the process, take the lights down, and come back tomorrow and file your permit and put the lights back up.
Well, you may be able to tell them, take it down and come to the process. If you get approval, you can put the lights back up.
That's right.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Toledano, turn your light off, Mike.
No, sir, I'm fine.
I said turn it off. Yeah.
I want to make sure that I understand all the facts, because I think when we cut through the issues that are before us today, it's almost a fairness question. So do I understand, either from the gentleman from Christ Episcopal or the opposition, that the lights came after Natchez Trace was installed, or if that's not correct, please correct me. That is to say, was Natchez Trace already there by the time your group made the application?
So the school itself predates Natchez Trace. Natchez Trace has been developed over time.
But my pointed question, sir, was whether the lights came after Natchez Trace was installed. Yes. Vis-a-vis the comment from Mr. Fontenot that the lights were not applied for first.
Right, so the track was installed first, right?
Not talking about the track.
Okay, then are you talking about the lights? And the lights came afterward. The lights, okay. There were permits applied for building permits and electrical permits to install the light, but not a request to review the prior site plan approval, which had not included the lights, and that's where that was a mistake that the school made.
Thank you. And while you're there, sir, if you don't mind, how many nights, I guess we're talking about nights, how many nights a year are these lights on?
Right, so right now it's...
For instance, my question is, are they left on as a courtesy for people who might want to use the track, or is it just an event lighting system?
No, so right now my understanding is that when the lights were being used, it was generally they were off early in the evening, but when it's not daylight savings time, you'd have practices there. There's specific hours in the parish zoning code about when you can have lights on at this type of facility, and we're certainly complying with that. But to the extent that the lights had been used, they were turned off well before the requirements under the parish code, and we'll certainly, again, do whatever the parish requires in that instance.
Right. Well, you know, I might be the only one at the dance.
And I'm sorry, if I could just make one correction. When the lights were initially installed, in order to have them, it's I think called burn-in, they have to run them continuously for 24 hours. So I believe when the lights were first installed, they may have run continuously for 24 hours. That was just part of the installation of the lights. Since that time, they've been compliant with the parish requirements.
Thank you. Here's the quandary that I found myself in. You've got a great community in Natchez Trace. You have a great community in Christ Episcopal, and I know some of these people, and they're some of our great educators in this community. I haven't heard anybody tonight say time is of the essence. That is to say, and I haven't recalled that it's come before us yet, but is there any reason, compelling reason, that, for instance, if we offered your groups, the collective two groups, a chance to work with yourselves and amongst yourselves, and we're going to give you 30 more days to come forth with a solution. For instance, qualifying it to say, I am not an electrician nor am I a lighting expert, but I have used in my own yard baffles behind lights in my yard lights so that people can see my Christmas tree lights. I mean, my lights in a star and a tree. So just putting a baffle behind a light keeps the light reflectively glare, what do you call it, glare reflection, from not going backwards, so people that drive past my house can see my star, of which probably most people will not follow what I'm saying. But what I'm saying to you is I'm just wondering if there's a solution out there, and if so, I would love to see y'all have the opportunity to do it. Forget litigation. That doesn't, the most important thing is two great communities working together. Why can't you take 30 days to see, for instance, if the baffle idea works? For instance, one of the nice pictures was St. Paul's, but St. Paul's have insulators on both sides, stadium on one side, the school campus on the other, so that's different. But in this case, you are in close proximity. So I just put out on the table for discussion a 30-day postponement by us. I don't think the world comes to an end. I haven't heard any compelling reasons. And just maybe there is something you have not explored.
Yeah, no, and
I'll ask that to both groups.
Sure, and if I could respond.
Absolutely.
So.
You're asking them that question?
Yeah, I'm asking it, what
Both
harm
groups
is...
need to respond then.
What harm is to occur?
Right, so respectfully, so I understand that there have been communications with the neighbors. The school tries to be a good neighbor.
I'm going to ask you for an answer.
Sure.
Can
Yes,
you
sir.
go for another 30 days or not? And both people need to answer that without a lengthy discussion.
Would any harm curb to your project?
I think from the school's perspective, we do think there would be harm. We've stopped the entire project since November, which is a considerable expense to the school. Right now, you have a track there that's basically surrounded by mud, so that creates issues of access to the track. And part of the project is installing the circular drive around the track to prevent cars from stacking onto Highway 21. So, as previously mentioned, from the school's perspective, it's a lighting issue and it's a safety issue because the installation of the road around the track.
I think you've answered our question.
Thank you.
And I'm going to stop you there.
All right.
And I want the other
Thank you.
side to answer that question.
Sure.
Mr. Snyder? Somebody. Okay.
Again, Mr. Chairman, Gary Giordano again. We would be in favor of delaying the decision for another 30 days, and we think there are other lighting systems, LED lighting systems are available that could have been used that would prevent light spillover and glare into Natchez Trace.
Thank you.
Yeah, and let it be known that I'm not suggesting they incur some magnificent expense to change the lighting. I'm just saying I'm wondering if there's something such as baffles, as an example. To me, what I'm suggesting has nothing to do with the drive around. I don't see any need to stop any of that, but I just think there might be some common ground here that's worth exploring in the spirit of the community, but that might be one voice in the wilderness.
Thank you, Mr. Toledano, for your increased rambling.
Thank you.
You did get your question answered. Thank you. Mr. Dean, I think you need to make a statement on this. Since it is in your district, I think that, and I'm not asking him because it's in his district, because he's going to have to recuse himself, and he needs to explain why he recused himself.
Did you want to speak to the other councilman? I will have to recuse myself because I have a family member who teaches there. It's unfortunate because it is in my district, and certainly I have an opinion on it, but I'd rather hold that back for right now, especially since Mr. Wynn has mentioned litigation, which I think is unfortunate.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Mr. Tanner, you're next. Wait a minute. You guys.
He's first.
Well, he's going to make a motion, so if you...
I have another question and comment.
Oh, no. Is it going to be longer than 10 minutes?
No. In fact, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that you please instruct your vice chairman to put 4 minutes on the clock, because I want to see if I can beat it.
No.
Okay, request denied.
5 minutes?
I'll take 4.
It's running.
2 minutes. Okay. Let me just say this, based upon our colleague, Mr. Toledano, and I don't know what Mr. Tanner's motion will be because Mr. Dean has to recuse himself. But I would say this to my colleagues. A 30-day delay just to come back in 30 days is worth nothing. A 30-day delay, if the two sides get, and I'm not a lighting engineer, but I've dealt with new lights going up. These lights are high, they need to be high, because their main purpose is to shine light and not have shadows and dark spots in the area they're supposed to light. But these lighting design firms, through computers, can adjust your lights to try to reduce glare as much as possible. So my only point, Mr. Toledano, is if we're just giving them 30 days, simply to come back in 30 days, and we're in the same boat, then for me, I'd rather vote tonight. If you're going to bring an independent, not your manufacturer, spend a few dollars and bring an independent firm in to look at your lighting location at night and see if they're adjusted properly and so forth, then 30 days is reasonable. That's my only point. How did I do, Ms. Blanchard?
Pretty good. She's not running the meeting, but you did make it in less than 4 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Belisario.
Just a couple of quick ones. We keep talking about the height of the lights. I need to know from Sydney, have they installed them at the proper height for the athletic fields, or are they higher than what it should be? I'm just checking.
They are below the maximum height for athletic fields.
Okay, with the reduction in the glare where they made this 5% adjustment, what was the adverse impact on the area around the running track and the fields? Would it make it difficult to have their athletic events? If not, can we increase that?
I think that I have heard an explanation of that, and I can't remember when. I think you should refer to ask the school that question, because I actually haven't been out since they made the adjustments.
All right. I'd like to have their speaker then address that.
Mr. Lyons or Mr. Croxton?
Yes, sir. The manufacturer came out, did adjust the lights downward. It was actually against their recommendation because it did darken the field in certain areas of the playing field. We said we want to do that in any event to be good neighbors, and we want to try and be helpful to reduce any overflow of light. I think when you saw the earlier picture, you would notice that it was quite dark around the perimeter of the track. This is the state-of-the-art lighting system in the parish for this type of facility, we believe. And so at least our manufacturer believed that when they made the adjustments, they recommended against it.
That's all I need. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? You kept looking there. I thought you were.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to be able to answer this, but I wanted to know what's the minimum height that would give the effect that's needed for the children to be on the track? I mean, I know it's 70 feet up now. How low could you possibly lower it? How much could you lower it and still have effective lighting? Can you do that at all?
Yeah, I'll try and answer that from the lawyer's perspective, and because I'm not a lighting engineer, but presumably when this was designed, they did it at whatever the lowest height they could do that would work, because the higher you go with the lights, it's greater expense. It could potentially create greater issues. So I'd have to assume that when they designed the lights, they did it in the most efficient way possible at the appropriate height and didn't go any higher than they needed to. And again, right, the lower you go, the less the system works. You probably end up having more lights. So I think they were trying to balance cost and efficiency issues in order to come up with something that works.
Well, that was my next question. Could you add additional lighting poles at a lower level and accomplish the same thing and be a better neighbor to Natchez Trace?
Well, I don't want to speculate about what the effect would be, but the thought would be that if you have lights at a lower level, if you have more lights, that would create potentially more spillover. So again, the job of the lighting experts is to come up with the plan that gets it done most efficiently in compliance with parish code and without creating minimum spillover issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tanner.
Thank you, Mr. Stefan. I have a few questions, probably to the school first. I understand that the lighting and the athletic facility is not finished, but once it's finished, can somebody tell me the number of nights the lights will be used per week, per month, and per the school year?
Right. I think at this point it's anticipated, and again, it's going to depend on what time of the year you're talking about. Primarily when it's not daylight savings time, there'll be evening practices, but that presumably would be two or three evenings a week for practices. Potentially there could be some type of track meet or soccer match. Or right now there's a track there, and the infield is used for soccer and lacrosse. So those would be the types of activities practice, it would be going there. Again, in the ordinary course, if it's the middle of the winter, you'd have it lit at 5 o'clock until practice is over at 6 or 7 o'clock. I guess potentially there could be events there on Friday or Saturday night if they had some type of match there. But right now, the school doesn't have a specific schedule for the field yet.
I asked Mr. Hand this question already, and I was surprised at the answer. I just wondered what time the lights are required to be turned off, and he told me, and it seemed kind of late. But then when he explained to me it affects all the schools, plus it affects all our recreation districts and what have you, and I know sometimes we go that late or more in those. I heard somebody ask the question, which was there first, the athletic field or the subdivision? Well, I know the answer to that question. The school was there long before the subdivision was there. And my answer to that question is, everybody knows the school is going to have an athletic field with lights sooner or later. So, I mean, I don't know who developed the property and what have you, but they certainly knew that that was going to be there. And then the homeowners suggested that, you know, that they could do LED lights and what have you. My question is, are the homeowners willing to pay for any new lights because they don't like the ones that are there?
Do you want an answer to that question?
Well, it would help. No, I don't really need an answer because I think I know the answer.
Okay.
Okay. And so, based on that, I'm going to make a motion. If Mr. Dean doesn't have a problem with me making a motion, I'm going to make a motion that we can concur with the zoning approval and allow the school to go ahead and pursue their athletic facility.
Motion by Mr. Tanner to concur with the approval, seconded by Mr. Sharp. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, please vote with your lights.
I'm a no vote, Mr. Chairman.
You're a no vote?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Rickard. Mr. Toledano is a no. You're not absent, so okay. What are you doing?
Abstain.
Okay.
You abstained. Mr. Gregory. Okay. With Mr. Toledano's change in vote, motion passes with 8 yeas, 3 nays, 1 abstention, and 1 recusal, and 1 absent.
Thank you. With that in mind, to concur, we need a introduction of an ordinance.
I move that we introduce the ordinance.
Seconded by Mr. Belisario, and that's it. Okay, next item is item number 3, Jeff Shane for Hazel Fogg appealing the Zoning Commission's denial on May 2nd, 2017 to reclassify 2.879 acres located south of Highway 435 east of Murphy Singletary Road from NC6 Public Cultural Recreational District and A2 Residential District to NC6 Public Cultural and Recreational District, Ward 6, Number 6. And I believe I have, before you start, Mr. Shane, I just want to make sure, since they didn't fill out blue cards, I assume they're on yellow, Tracy Moore and Amy Ladner will be the other side. Is that correct? Thank you. Okay. Mr. Shane, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, and my name is Jeff Shane. I'm with the Jones Fussell Law Firm in Covington, and I represent the petitioner in this matter, Dorsey Development. This case is a zoning request to facilitate the construction of a Dollar General store in Tallahassee. I am handing out to you at this time copies of an email with attachments that were previously sent to you last Friday. There are no changes to what you received this evening from what you got last week. I'd like to begin the presentation by telling you a little bit about the project. For those of you that may not be familiar with Tallahassee, this parcel is literally in the center of Tallahassee, where Highway 432, coming from the north, intersects Highway 435. The tract consists of approximately 2.82 acres, and in comprehensive zoning in 2009, a portion of the property was zoned and remains today zoned NC6. That portion is approximately 120 feet deep off of the highway. The Dollar General site plan includes a 9,100 square foot building on this 2.82 acre parcel, and in order to accommodate the site plan, it was necessary to get additional NC zoning to the south. So the original application that was filed and went before the Zoning Commission sought to seek the entire 2.82 acres to be zoned NC6. That would continue the NC6 zoning, if you will, south of that 120-foot mark that was established by the council during comprehensive rezoning. At this time, I'd like the record to reflect that the petitioner is specifically amending its petition in the following respects. Number one, we seek no NC6 zoning whatsoever, and in fact reduce the zoning request two classifications to NC4. That would require that the 268 feet of depth off of Highway 435 be zoned NC4. That would also allow the rear 150 feet of the 2.82 acres to remain its current zoning A2. In addition to that, as you can see on the site plan, we are also going to eliminate a triangular-shaped portion on the east side of the tract from being zoned NC as well, and it likewise will remain A2. So as a result of the amendment, there is no request for NC6. There's a downzone request to NC4, and I would say that we've reduced the site by almost 50% as to the area that needs to be zoned. The other thing I'd like the record to reflect is that we have agreed to place fencing over and above what code requires along the western boundary of the building, along Murphy-Singletary Road, and also across the rear side of the building. At the Zoning Commission meeting, it was suggested that this site, the zoning and the building, would literally be next door to the adjoining Tallahassee General Store. That is not the case, in that now we have created a buffer or green area that's approximately 130 feet from our building line to the property line. We did that in direct response to complaints that we heard from the residents in the area. So at the end of the day, we would suggest to you that the parish in comprehensive rezoning has already determined that this is an appropriate site for commercial activity. There is, in fact, a business next door, the Tallahassee store, which is operated for many years. Our operation will be similar in many respects. There is no reason to believe that it would not be compatible, and we think that in response to the concerns of citizens, if you'll take a look at the Google with me, that was the second sheet in your packet, it's green. If you will, look hard and see now the separation that we've created between the site plan, which is in yellow, and the property line, which is blue. And essentially that area beyond the site plan and within the blue area is all going to remain A2, and obviously will continue to remain wooded. which means it will be like-kind zoning of the neighbors. In fact, if you'll look at that Google, I would suggest to you that other than seeing the store, which is below or immediately to the east, you'll have a hard time finding any residences anywhere near the property line, the Brew property line in question. We also think that the fencing along Murphy Singletary Road was a good idea because, again, it will continue to provide even more shielding from the operation from the people that travel up and down that road. At the Zoning Commission meeting, the residents suggested that Tallahassee has a store, that it doesn't need a second store. I don't believe this case tonight is about the existing store or the proposed store. This case tonight is about the appropriateness of seeking additional zoning for a business opportunity. The fact that there may be two businesses in this community that presents more opportunity for consumers to buy goods and services. It certainly promotes competition. It's what free market's all about. It provides employment opportunities. It provides property tax base. It provides sales taxes. It's really what the country is all about. I would suggest to you that if the Dollar General store had been established in this community 30 years ago, and the resident or the property owner next door were coming to you tonight seeking the same zoning request in order to build their store, it would be just as inappropriate for Dollar General to suggest that there's no place for another business in the community. Because at the end of the day, what this case is really all about is just extending the zoning to a significant, substantial depth to allow for the site plan to be built. It still provides almost 40 to 50% of the site as A2. There is no one that lives on the literal border or proximity of the site plan. There's enough shielding and buffer and fencing to take care of reasonable concerns that the neighbors may have. What we hope is that Dollar General will bring an asset to the Tallahassee community just as it has brought to many communities in our parish. I dare say that each of you as council persons and all of us as attendees at this meeting tonight can think of Dollar General stores throughout our parish. And for the most part, they're well run. They provide a nice array of goods and services, and they are part of the good economy that St. Tammany Parish has. I ask you tonight, in light of this amended petition, to override the denial of the Zoning Commission and grant the NC4 zoning for the site plan area as indicated on the documents before you. If I could ask Madam Clerk to please accept the packet that I have provided to her as the amendment to the petition that was originally filed. And we understand that if this council were to in fact ordain that this property be zoned, that we will need to provide a new survey and new legal description to Mr. Fontenot's department to make sure that the property is properly depicted on your parish zoning map. Realizing I cannot reserve this time, that's the only comments I have to make at this time, and I will come back with rebuttal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Shane.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chairman, if I can get some clarification on Mr. Shane's proposal.
Thank you. I'll allow that. You got a question for
Mr. Shane, specifically parcel 1, it appears to be remaining NC4 on the preliminary site plan, but it's not shaded yellow on the aerial. And I just want clarification as to your proposal, is that for that to be A2 or is that to remain to go to NC4? So the north, essentially lot 1 of the square, that part next to the adjacent store.
Right. Well, if on the zoning map that I think you're looking at, it shows the cross-hatching. It says to be rezoned from NC6 to NC4. Correct.
And here, it's not showing yellow.
Yes. Well, that's because that's not going to be a developed site plan.
Okay.
You're correct that there is a rezone there, but it's because it's already NC6, but our site plan does not extend beyond the 30-foot power line right away.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shane. Go to the other side. I have 2 cards. Which one of you want to speak first? You are Amy?
I'm Tracy Moore.
Tracy.
I own the store. I've owned it for about 5.5 years now. I'm not arguing for anyone to have a business opportunity right next to that store. My problem with it is we are trying to get the cemetery and the store and the surrounding properties all deemed archaeological property. There's two different pages for all of you to look at. I have an archaeologist, Joseph Yarborough, currently working on this. I don't have a problem with anyone having a business opportunity. However, that would not be a business opportunity like ours is. It is not just a store. I feed people. It is a poor town. It is very, very poor. There are people who cannot afford school clothes for their kids. I provide that for their kids. There are people who cannot afford food for their kids. There's people that can't afford food for themselves. We provide that for them. I don't ask favors from anyone. This is not about a favor. I pay for everything myself. I have worked very hard to do what I do every day. There are plenty of people, if anyone wanted to come and spend a day at that store, you could ask everyone in there and everyone would say, I tell her every day to stop trying to save the world, but she just doesn't listen. It is a quaint town. If you read through those papers, read what the town is about, you will see that. We do not need any large business to take that away from them. Any store, any commercial investment there that would take away from these people would be a bad idea. You want to do something for that town? Put a shelter there, because there's plenty of people there that need that. I do believe Mr. Tanner did come to the store at one point and ask me about the people that were living there with no utilities, no electricity, and no water. My response to that was quite simple. We have no mail delivery there. The town is so small that we have no mail delivery there. There are no mailboxes on people's houses in Tallahassee. FedEx, UPS, DHL, they have to come to Tallahassee Grocery. Why would they have to come there? There's a little trailer across the street that's a post office. Well, because the town is so small that the post office does not open until 12 noon. So any deliveries that are made before noon, they have to come to me and give me a first and last name so I can direct them how to get to those people, if I can. If I can't, I have to get on the phone and I have to call neighboring people to find out how they can reach this residence. This is a small town. We would like to keep it that way. There's lots of other business opportunities that can be put there, that can be made to help others. I've learned a lot at this meeting. I've heard other people speak. I heard the district attorney talking about the people that go to the public defender's office. You know how many people come to my store crying, Miss Tracy, please give me something to do so I don't go use drugs today. I find them something to do. And then I give them $20 so they can go spend it on something other than drugs. Miss Tracy, I need a ride to the courthouse. I have drug court today. Miss Tracy calls a friend to come run to the store so I can leave and get that person to drug court in Covington so they don't go to jail that day. I need a ride to the doctor. I need a ride to the pharmacy. I need a pair of shoes that your husband has and I cannot find them anywhere. Where would I find those? Fine, I'll go online and get them for you. No one else is going to offer those opportunities for people, so I am pleading with all of you, please keep up with the original decision with planning and zoning to deny them zoning for any other commercial venture that includes a retail outlet. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amy Ladner. Well, I'm the one that lives on the road, and we've had many conversations, Mr. Tanner and I, and, you know, everyone thinks I'm at the end of the road. Well, let me tell you where I'm located. I am 1/10 of a mile from the beginning of the road to my property where it starts. Can you imagine going home every day? I have a beautiful home sitting on your porch, and picture this. What do you see? Fence, Dollar General. Just like the lighting store y'all went through, noise and everything else. Can you imagine that? I'm going to tell you something. Tracy and I got a petition together, and over 160-something people signed that. Mr. Tanner and I had, like I said, multiple conversations, and he says to me, well, Amy, some of them look like they weren't in the area, and I got to make sure they vote in that area. Well, some of them are people that are in that area that voted. Some of them are people that pass through, that live in other areas, that come and visit their parents, and they sign this petition. From what I understand, a lot of people I'm hearing is for this. In a town that everyone knows, you blink an eye, you go through it. Well, let's talk about that. Those people that are for it, where are they? Where's their petition? Was a petition presented? No. The Planning and Zoning group that night that each and every one of you appointed, guess what? Do y'all know what the vote was that night? Do y'all have any idea? They all voted against it, but one member that is appointed by each and every one of you. So I just want you to know that in case you don't know that. But I want to tell you something. I do hospice for a living. Mr. Dean knows this. He's known me for quite some time. And you know, when I go home in the evenings, I want to relax. I want peace and quiet. My parents, Richard and Doris Smith, are with me here tonight. They moved us here to Tallahassee from New Orleans when I was 4, and I'm 54 today, 50 years ago. Guess what? I want to stay in that rural, quiet area. But you know what else? This town cannot support another commercial business. You blink of an eye, you go through Tallahassee. Okay, let's talk about commercial businesses. Let's talk about Dollar Generals. Guess what? They're everywhere. You can go 12 miles, 12 minutes maybe this way, you're in Bush. Okay, you leave, let's go to Pearl River. You hit the first one by Highway 36. You hit the second one further into Pearl River. Then you hit one off of 36. Guess what? What's going to happen to this Dollar General when people can't even afford to buy groceries in Tallahassee? And what Tracy failed to mention is she lets them charge for them to get that milk, get that bread. Well, how are they going to be able to pay for that at a Dollar General or whatever commercial business it is? It's just Tallahassee is a blink of an eye. We don't need it there. There's everywhere else. I don't have a problem with progress. Graduating from Covington High in 1981, and my God, have I seen a lot of progress in Covington, and it's great. But not in our small town, not in a town that most of these people get checks. They can't afford it. They're on disability. I mean, what is that going to do? I mean, it might open, but it's not going to be supported, just like on 59. Correct me if I'm wrong. There was a Dollar General. It's an empty building. Then over down the street, another one's built. That building will become empty and an eyesore in a small town that can't afford to support it. But if anyone wants to go to a store other than Tracy's, they can drive a little bit. But let's keep our small town a small town as I'd like it to be. And I want you to close your eyes and think, if you're sitting on your front porch in the evening trying to relax after a hard day of work, and what do you have? A Dollar General or another business. A lot of noise, a lot of traffic. They're open till 10 o'clock at night. So I'm just asking you, we're the mercy of you, to please make the right decision of the small town of Tallahassee that you blink an eye and you go through. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak on that side? You have 1.5 minutes. Seeing none, I'm going to go to rebuttals. Mr. Shane, you have 2 minutes.
I think it should be noted that the staff report did not completely object to the request for change of zoning. In fact, I quote, it said that if the rear portion of the property would remain zoned A2, considering the rural character of the area and the proximity to some of the existing residences, the implication, I think, is clear that they would have supported the zoning. That's one reason that we amended the petition to make sure that the rear 150 feet would remain, in fact, zoned A2. With regard to Ms. Moore's comments, I'm not sure the implication of her engagement of an archaeologist. I will only tell you that our store and its construction, we understand that we've got to meet all local, state, and federal requirements, whether it be from any agency. So if there are issues that need to be dealt with in that regard, we'll understand it. My guess is if there's issues on this track, there may be issues on surrounding tracks as well. So it will be interesting to see what that inquiry produces. I continue to have a hard time understanding this poor town discussion. I would never think that I would speak about the town that I come from or any place I live as being poor. I don't think that I'm missing the boat here. If in fact the people in that town have challenges, I would hope that the opportunity to have another store cannot be to their detriment. If it turns out that the existing store is the best store and the best prices and the best services and there's credit, and in addition to that, people will help you with assistance, people are free to go there and they'll continue to do so. I think that's what the marketplace is all about. But I don't think this is a battle of the Tallahassee General Store versus the Dollar General. I think it's a question of whether or not a track can be downzoned from NC6 to NC4, and for that reason I hope that you vote to override.
Thank you. The other side has 2 minutes rebuttal.
Well, there's one thing about me, I'm honest, and I do live in a very poor town because, like I said, I do hospice for a living. How you live and how you die, and honesty means a lot. And I live by God every day that I make the right decisions in my life. So I do want to say, it is a poor town, it's unfortunate, but it is. Things have changed. It's a town that has lots of struggles. What Tracy failed to mention to you is there are some people that struggle that I want to tell you, they don't have refrigerators that she stores the refrigerator stuff for them. She lets them heat them up in the microwave. You have no idea. She has pools out there for some people's children. She has a lot to help people make a difference. But you know what? I'm confused. Why would a store even want to go next to a store in a town that you blink an eye? Let's think about this, because I do business development. Why are they going out on 41? Why do they have to go right next to a business? You get more traffic on Highway 41. You won't where we are. So it's kind of confusing to me. The spot that has been picked and has been for this store really confuses me. Hardly anybody goes through that little town. Why didn't they put it somewhere else? Sure, I have a problem with it. It's 5/10 of a mile from my front porch. It's going to be open till 10 o'clock at night. It's going to be the noise. It's going to be the truck deliveries. It's going to be the lights. Sure, I got a problem with it. So all I'm asking you, for each and every one of you, to say a silent prayer to yourself before you make this decision tonight on what is the best thing to do and how you would feel if you're in my situation and Tracy's. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the public discussion. Now we'll open it up for the floor. Is that Mr. Lorino?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Roby next.
Want me to go? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can Mr. Shane come up for a minute? I'd just like to ask him a question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Jeff, good evening. Listening and understanding what the ladies had to say, one thing that I know you probably can't answer this, but it just sticks out to me, is that even you made the statement that probably listening to them, there's nobody going to shop in this Dollar General store because the town is so small, okay? That's just me sitting here listening. So if it would close because no one shops there, she made a very good point about having a building sitting there. Is there anything that, as I said, I don't know, is there anything that can be put or written if it does close, that it wouldn't be another building, Dollar General would just knock it down? I know it's probably no, but I'm just thinking, I'm listening to everybody on it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's anything that could be given to the people or to the public, to government, that would assure you as to what would happen if the store didn't make it. But the question that you direct, I think, has a little different answer. It's not my feeling that people won't come to the Dollar General and shop.
No, it's theirs.
It's my feeling that there's no reason that Dollar General should not have the opportunity. If you look at the rural communities in our parish and think about the Dollar Generals you're familiar with, I dare you in most instances to say that when those Dollar Generals went up, you might have been scratching your head as to why is a Dollar General being built here? And it's because most of our rural communities continue to see growth. Ask Mr. Sharp about the growth in his community. Ask Mr. Sharp if he ever envisioned that he would have a neighborhood Dollar General literally across from Fitzgerald Lane and what it would do to that community. In fact, that was a case that I argued before this council 2 years ago. To be very specific to you, we believe that this is an area of growth. And we believe they should have the opportunity to compete.
Well, I agree, Jeff, that it's very difficult to stop someone from coming in with another store, another business, and I don't think that's our job either, but I always like to look at what we can do to help the people also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Groby. Mr. Groby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question, Ms. Maybe, for Sydney. What was the underlying reason that the zoning commission denied this? What, was it just that rezone in the rear section? Or was there something else? I don't have my packet.
I don't remember any specific thing that jumps out as a main reason. I mean, they heard the testimony, they heard about the location of the other stores, and I remember Mr. Davis making the motion, but I don't remember him necessarily stating a specific reason. I wish I could be more specific than that, but I think there was just an overall feel, you know, that they didn't. I don't know if it was the impact on the existing store, or you know, it really wasn't clear. But they did vote in 10-1, and for denial.
Was their drainage sufficient, their retention pond, their waste?
Well, it's zoning, so we wouldn't get into all that. That would be taken up at the permit time.
All right, thank you.
What was staff's recommendation? Ms. Sidney, what was staff's recommendation?
On the original recommendation for the whole essentially a town square, 300 by 300 feet or somewhere in that regard, we recommended denial, but we did open the doors. Our concern was the depth from the highway of going too far deep into the residential zoning. The reason that is in a block is there is a paper subdivision under Tallahassee called Town of Tallahassee. It's probably 25 squares. And there's actually a road to the south with lots fronting on it. If you look at your survey, you'll see that road. And so we didn't want to go too far down into the residential areas, but felt that the depth that was there, 120 feet, may not be adequate for a modern store to open. You know, not being able to provide parking and landscaping and drainage requirements and all those things we require now.
Thank you. Mr. Tanner, you had your light on.
I appreciate the concern of the citizens in Tallahassee, and I know that the store in Tallahassee has been there forever, and I hope it stays there forever. But I also know that we have progress. We create jobs for other people. Some of those people that don't have money and are disabled might be able to work at this Dollar General, and they might not have to borrow $20 from the lady at the store. I wasn't at the zoning commission meeting, and I don't know why they voted 10-1, but I did watch the thing, and I heard the testimony of the people in Tallahassee with a lot of stuff that's untrue about gopher turtles and archaeological stuff and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, I don't even know gopher frogs, I mean, not turtles, gopher frogs. And they haven't found any gopher frogs in St. Tammany Parish in 100 years. And actually, they think they have some in Mississippi. But they tried to take 1,000 acres of St. Tammany's because they have a great habitat for these frogs. But if we had any frogs on this 2 acres of land, well, I don't think they'd be putting a dollar store on there, and I think they'd be putting a museum or something, because it would be a sight to come see, because people have been hunting those gopher frogs for a while. This, to me, is clear. It's a zoning problem. It's not 2 stores. It's not this and that and the other. The petition that I got, several people that signed that petition have come to me and said, look, I went into the store and they said, look, would you sign this petition so I can keep my store? You know, what you ask somebody to do and why you ask them is 2 different ways, 2 different things. So I really don't pay attention to petitions. Now, I can tell you, I got a maximum of 5 or 6 calls opposition to this. I also got more calls for this. I move that we overrule the denial of the Planning Commission and introduce an ordinance to do so.
No, you move to override the zoning denial, and I think we at this time have to accept the NC4 zoning. Is that correct, Sydney? Since that's been proposed?
That would have to be your motion.
That would have to be with the NC4 zoning as presented by Mr. Shane for his client. Okay, so that would be part of the motion?
Yeah.
And who seconded it?
Mr. Sharp.
Mr. Sharp seconded, okay? Any further discussion on this motion? The motion is to override denial. Please vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Thank you. Ordinances for adoption. Oh, wait, no, we need an ordinance. We need to introduce an ordinance. Motion by Mr. Tanner to introduce the ordinance, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Yeah. Now we go to ordinances for adoption. Ordinance calendar number 5735. I need a motion to remove this from the agenda. Motion by Mr. Roby, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Any further discussion? We've had this on here for quite a while and can't see how to make it work. So, any further discussion? Please vote to remove it from the agenda. Who are we missing? Toledano?
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Thank you. Ordinance count number 5776, ordinance to amend the 2017 operating budget, amendment number 4. Mr. Tanner?
So moved.
Motion by Tanner, seconded by Mr. Dean. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Ordinance count number 5777 to amend ordinance CS number 16-3457, the 2016 grant budget.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Lorino. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Ordinance count number 5778, ordinance to authorize St. Tammany Parish President to accept the dedication and donation of certain infrastructures within the Landes, the Crossgate subdivision, Ward 9, District 8.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Belisario, seconded by Mr. Canulette. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5779, ordinance to amend the 2017 operating budget, amendment number 3.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5780, or to amend the 2016 operating budget, amendment number 15. Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Lorino. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5781, amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify .67 acres from A2 to NC5, Ward 7, District 7.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Groby. Seconded by Ms. Blanchard. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5782, amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 7.56 acres from A1 to HC2, Highway Commercial District, Ward 8, District 13. Motion by Ms. Blanchard, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5783 to amend the parish code for the reorganization of the Department of Public Works, Subdepartment of Engineering.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Canulet, seconded by Ms. O'Brien. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5784 to declare multiple tax adjudicated properties as surplus and authorize the parish to proceed with the sale of such. Motion by Ms. Blanchard, seconded by Mr. Toledano. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5786 to impose a 6-month moratorium on property within a portion of Bayou Desire Basin and portion of Flowers Bayou Basin, south of I-12, Ward 1, District 1.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to adopt and then go back to the other resolution.
The other one will come after that. We'll have it. Okay, motion to adopt by Mr. Dean, seconded by Mr. Lorino. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Motion by Mr. Dean to bring the resolution 4788 from the table. Motion by Mr. Dean, seconded by
Mr. Sharp.
Seconded by Belisario. Okay. And any discussion on the motion to remove from the table? Seeing none, please vote. Way back in the front.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay, Mr. Dean, you want motion to adopt
Motion,
the
please.
resolution?
Yes.
Resolution number 4788 is removed from the table, and he has a motion to adopt. Seconded by Mr. Canulet. Any discussion? Please vote. A lot of people haven't voted.
There it goes. Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Boy, is that what it says up there on that board? Oh, okay. All right, ordinance count number 5787, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify.
So moved.
12.8 acres from A3, I to I1 and I2 to I2.
So moved. So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bender. Seconded by Mr. Belisario. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Under appointments, resolution to appoint Justin Lutz to replace George Cassino, resigned to the Board of Directors for Drainage District Number 5.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Motion by Mr. Bender, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, please vote.
One more. Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Resolution to appoint Sue Osborne to the Board of Directors, St. Tammany Parish Hospital Service District Number 1.
So moved.
Mr. Dean, moved by Mr. Dean, seconded by Mr. Lorino. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Resolution to appoint Mike Franklin to fill a vacancy on the Board of Directors for Sewage District Number 1. Mr. Lorino. Okay, seconded by Mr. Dean. Any discussion? Please vote. I wasn't looking that way.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Resolution to appoint 1 member to replace Daniel Schaus, resigned to the Board of Directors for the Tourist and Convention Commission. We have on here Marlene Peachy has requested appointment. I think we have another person who wants to be nominated. I believe that's David. David what?
No, Mr. Chairman, that would be George Roussel.
Oh, George Roussel.
Yes, sir. And I sent out an email to my fellow colleagues, but I don't know if they received it, but I forgot to send it to the boss, Mr. Henderson, so I learned something. But so there is no resume there, but he is very qualified and looking forward to it and doing it. So I just want to place his name.
Okay, you want to add that the name to the nomination?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Second.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I believe his name is David Roussel. Yes, I just want to make sure it was clear. Thank you.
It is David Roussel, right? Okay, I thought it was David.
You know the man's name.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Second
Mr. Chairman.
To that nomination. No, second to that nomination. Okay. Okay, Mr. Sharp seconded the nomination. Now I'm going to open it up. We have 1 speaker here.
Mr. Chairman.
I would like to allow the public to speak before the council does.
I'm sorry.
And Marlene Peachy is here. Would you like to speak?
Mr. Chairman and fellow members of the council, I'm here strictly to introduce myself. Some of you already know me, but those that don't, it's a pleasure to meet you. And it would be an honor to represent this parish on this commission, and I thank you for your consideration. If you have any questions, my number's at the top of my resume. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marlene. Now, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to, at this time, offer a motion to suspend the rules so that we can take action on this nomination. The Tourist Commission is getting ready to go into its budgetary hearings. We are on a fiscal year end of June of every year, and we have been suffering through this vacancy for quite some time now. We need to, we would like to have a full quadre of commissioners, and so if we could take an action on that tonight, we'd appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, move to close nominations for the board first.
Well, first of all, what Mr. Smith has done is basically asked to have a vote on this tonight. This normally lays over a month for everybody to understand that. So I'm going to let Mr. Canulet make his motion to close the nominations.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Canulet, second by Mr. Belisario to close the nominations. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Now, Mr. Smith, you want to make a motion to suspend the rules and adopt, which means that if we do this, we would be voting on this tonight.
Second.
So seconded by Ms. O'Brien. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay. So we have two names on the, we need a...
If you'll go on to off the floor items, we'll put together a vote sheet.
Thank you. I think we put our staff in the... Okay. Under discussion and other matters, recommendation of the parish engineer that Mason Villa subdivision roadways and roadway drainage be taken into the parish maintenance system in accordance with ordinance calendar series number 163563. I think all we need to do is accept the recommendation. Motion by Mr. Dean, seconded by Mr. Sharp. And it's really just to accept the recommendation. So please vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Okay, we're going to items off the floor, the agenda items off the floor. We have 2 and 3 left. Resolution to vacate in part the 6-month moratorium on property within a defined area of North Street and south of Harrison Street, west of Ravine Street, and east of Elk Street and Fuchsia Street within unincorporated boundaries of Ward 3, District 5. Mr. Toledano.
Thank you, Mr. Tavanti. I'm told by our engineering and planning departments that it's appropriate.
Mr. Toledano, you need to move it. You need to ask that this be brought off the floor.
Thank you very much. In the form of a motion, I so move.
Okay, motion by Mr. Toledano to bring it off the floor, seconded by Mr. Canulette. You're getting your name in there a lot tonight. Remember, this takes a unanimous vote. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Hey, Mr. Toledano, you want to move to approve or what?
I do, and I so move. We're told that it's appropriate at this time to lift that moratorium, and therefore I move to vacate.
Okay, motion by to move to vacate by Mr. Toledano, seconded by Mr. Smith. Any discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, the third item on there is a resolution to appoint 2 members to fill the vacancy of St. Tammany Parish, sub-drainage district number 4 of drainage district number 5, of gravity drainage district number 5. Need to move to bring this item off the floor. Mr. Toledano. Okay, seconded by Mr. Marino.
Mr. Chairman, we need to wait till Don comes back in. He actually has the letter which assigns the 2 names to this particular resolution.
Here he is.
Here he is now.
Okay, we're trying to get it off the floor right now. So.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody vote to bring it off the floor. Clerk got the vote.
Mr. Tanner? Mr. Smith? Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. Now, you motion to adopt a resolution? and you need to put the names in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In substitution of the two gentlemen who have left the board, I move to substitute Barbara Hebert and Alexandra Tipton to Gravity Subdrainage District number 4. Both of these individuals are willing to serve.
This is not a substitution, this is a nomination.
Nomination, excuse me. Thank you very much.
Okay. Do I hear a second to that motion? Second. Seconded by Mr. Canulet. Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
I'll vote. Is there anything else to come before this off the floor? Down the line, Mr. Dean, Mr. Sharp, Mr. Loreno, Mr. Toledano.
No, thank you.
Ms. Blanchard. They're going to have to wait on me. Mr. Tanner. What? You have anything come off the floor? Mr. Groby. Mr. Canulet. Mr. Belisario, Ms. O'Brien, Mr. Bender.
No, sir.
Mr. Smith. Anyone from staff? Here you are.
Really? I gave it to Ashley. Oops.
Emergency ordinance.
We are waiting to tally the vote, and then as soon as we have those results, we'll announce them. The appointment to the tourism board is Marlene Apici. Motion by Mr. Canulet. Wait a minute. 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 Yes, I need the Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, would you like to make the motion to appoint? Yes, I would. Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Groby. Any discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Loreno? Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Seeing no other business come before this council, the meeting is adjourned.